Stop saying these 7 things after 70, or you might be pushing loved ones away. Senior advice. What if the words you use every day are quietly creating distance between you and the people you care about most? After age 70? At this stage of life, the things we say carry more meaning than ever. Words that once felt harmless can now gently, almost invisibly, begin to isolate us, and we don't even realize it's happening. The truth is, as we grow older, connection becomes more precious, but also more fragile. Many older adults speak from a place of hurt, loss, or fatigue, without knowing that certain familiar phrases can slowly put up emotional walls between them and their loved ones. Here's the hard part. Most seniors say these things with good intentions. They're not trying to push anyone away, but over time, these repeated expressions can leave others feeling helpless, awkward, or quietly rejected. So if you've ever wondered why people don't visit as much, or why conversations fall silent when you enter the room, it may not be your age, it might be your words. In this video, we'll walk through 8 common phrases that many seniors over 70 say without realizing the impact they carry. And no, this isn't about putting on a happy face or pretending everything's perfect. It's about understanding that your voice still matters and it still shapes your relationships. Your words can build stronger bonds or quietly break them. The good news? Once you recognize these patterns, you can shift them, starting today. And I promise, the last one we'll talk about may surprise you the most. So stick around. Let's begin. With number 1, the phrase, "I just want to wait until my time comes." There's something especially heavy about this sentence. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And yet it carries the quiet weight of someone who stopped expecting anything from life. You may have heard someone say it. You may have said it yourself. Often it comes out slowly, maybe over a cup of tea, or after another lonely evening. I'm just waiting for my time to come. It sounds like resignation, like acceptance, but it's not. What it really signals is this: I don't see a reason to try anymore. And that is the real tragedy. Because when you start waiting for life to end, you stop letting it reach you. You stop laughing at the silly things. You stop planning the small joys. You stop answering when life knocks, because deep down, you think the story's already over. The quiet danger of giving up. Psychologists from the American Psychological Association have studied this mindset in aging adults. They found that when seniors begin to mentally detach from life, saying things like, "I've done enough," or "I'm just waiting for the end," they show significantly higher signs of undiagnosed depression, sleep issues, weakened immunity, and even a faster decline in overall health. But here's something many forget. Words are not just words, they're beliefs we rehearse. And when you rehearse the end of your story every day, you stop allowing new chapters to unfold. A real story from Wisconsin. Let me tell you about Mr. Allen, 78, from a small town near Madison, Wisconsin. He was a retired postman, married for 53 years. When his wife passed, something shifted. The house got quieter, days got longer, and slowly so did his words. Every time his son came to visit, Allen would look out the window and say, "Don't worry about me, I'm just waiting until it's my turn." At first, his son brushed it off, thinking it was just grief. But as the weeks turned into months, the visits grew shorter. Not because his son didn't love him, but because he didn't know how to reach past that wall. Grief is natural. Slowing down is natural, but giving up is not. So what can we say instead? Let's be honest. There are days when life feels slower, emptier, or harder, but that doesn't mean the only thing left to do is wait. Instead of saying, "I'm just waiting for my time to come," try something softer, more hopeful, like, "I may not have all the answers, but I want each day to mean something." Because when you say that, you're not pretending, you're choosing. You're opening the door for small purpose to come back in. Whether that's a call with your granddaughter, a walk around the block, or even writing down a memory to pass on. Small purpose is still purpose, and it's enough. Why this change matters: when you shift your words, you shift your direction. People feel it. They see that you're still present, still reachable, still open. They don't have to carry guilt or helplessness when they visit you. They can bring joy instead. And you start to feel like a participant in life again, not a footnote. You'll find yourself smiling more, sleeping more peacefully, being remembered and cherished, not because you're fading, but because you're still here. Let me ask you, have you ever caught yourself saying this? Or maybe you've heard it from someone close and it left you unsure what to say. If so, you're not alone, but you do have a choice. And sometimes A single change in what we say is all it takes to shift how we live. Before we move on, if this message touched you in any way, please take a moment to let us know. Click the like button so more people can find this message. Leave a comment below with the words, "I choose to live fully today." And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to Golden Wise Elders. This is a space where your voice matters, your story still counts, and every chapter, no matter how late, is worth writing. Let's keep going. There are more phrases we need to talk about, and the next one might be even more familiar than you think. Number 2, the phrase, "I don't matter anymore." There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from believing that you no longer matter. It's not shouted, it's whispered, often after the kids have grown, the job has ended, or the house that used to echo with laughter now sits in silence. And somewhere along the way, this quiet sentence finds its way into your heart. I don't think I matter to anyone anymore. It doesn't always come from pain. Sometimes it comes from emptiness, from the absence of being asked for advice, from feeling invisible in conversations, from the silence that follows when birthdays get missed, or no one asks how you really are. But here's the truth no one told you loud enough. Your worth doesn't retire when your career ends. It doesn't disappear when your children move out. And it doesn't vanish just because the world moves faster than you do. What this phrase really does, when you repeat, "I don't matter anymore," you don't just convince yourself, you teach others to believe it too. You begin to step back quietly from invitations. You hesitate to offer ideas, assuming they won't be valued. You stop raising your hand, even when you still have something meaningful to say. And over time, this turns into a kind of self-erasure. The science behind it. A 2022 study from Harvard Medical School found that older adults who report feeling useless or unimportant experience a 35% higher risk of memory decline and cognitive loss over time. Why? Because our brain is wired for contribution. When we no longer feel needed, it stops firing in the same way. It dims, not because of age, but because of disconnection. Claire's story, Claire, 75, lives just outside Austin, Texas. She was a beloved elementary school teacher for over 3 decades, sharp, funny, endlessly patient with her students. But after retiring and losing her husband a few years later, something changed. She started missing Sunday services, declining dinner invites, and when someone asked why, she softly replied, "I don't think I matter to anyone anymore." Her church group, not wanting to push her or make her feel awkward, stopped asking. They thought they were giving her space. But what Claire really needed was someone to remind her that she was still seen, still heard, still needed, a new way to speak to yourself. If you've ever said that phrase or felt its weight, try shifting it. You don't have to lie to yourself or pretend to be cheerful, but you can leave space for growth with a simple reframe. I'm still learning what I can offer, and that's okay. That one sentence does something powerful. It tells your brain, your heart, and everyone around you, you are still open, still growing, still part of the conversation. What changes when you change your words? Everything. You'll begin to feel a gentle sense of purpose return through helping a neighbor, sharing advice, or simply being present. Increase clarity and confidence when you speak, a stronger sense of identity, even when your daily routine has shifted. And perhaps most importantly, others will start to approach you differently too. Not as someone fading into the background, but as someone still full of insight, memory, and quiet strength. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you weren't needed anymore? What helped you find your way back to feeling valued again? I'd love to hear your story, because it might help someone else find their way too. Before we move on, if this conversation feels like something you've needed to hear, please take a moment to comment below with the words, "I still matter." Share. And if someone you love might need this reminder today, consider sharing this video with them. You never know how much difference a few words can make. Let's keep going. There's more to explore and more ways we can stay connected. Number 3, the phrase, "I don't want to bother anyone." It's one of the most common phrases older adults say, and yet it's one of the most misunderstood. I don't want to bother anyone. It sounds polite, humble, considerate, almost noble, right? But let me ask you something. What if beneath those words is something deeper? A quiet belief that your needs aren't worth someone else's time, because that's what this phrase often hides. Not strength, but fear. The fear of being a burden, the fear of rejection, the fear that asking for help might somehow make you less. And while it may come from a place of selflessness, the truth is, It often does the exact opposite of what you intend, the impact of always holding back. When you say, I don't want to bother anyone, over and over again, you begin to train the people around you to stop asking, to stop offering, to stop showing up. They think they're respecting your space, but what they're really doing is retreating, not because they don't care, but because you've convinced them you don't need them, or worse, that they're not welcome in your world anymore. And you start to feel even more alone, not because no one cares, but because you've unintentionally told them to keep their love at a distance. What the research says, according to the Mayo Clinic, seniors who consistently downplay their needs or avoid asking for help are more likely to experience social isolation, depression, and even premature health decline. Why? Because human connection is built on mutual presence, not independence at all costs. We don't bond with each other by doing everything alone. We bond by letting others show up for us. A quiet example from New Jersey, take Raymond, 81, from Trenton, New Jersey. He's a proud man, served in the military, built his own home, raised 3 children. So when his health started slipping, he kept it to himself. His daughter, Megan, would call to check in, offer to drive him to the doctor, bring over groceries. And every time Raymond would say, no, I'm fine. I don't want to bother anyone. He thought he was sparing her stress, but Megan, feeling shut out, began calling less, not because she didn't love him, but because she felt like her love was in the way. Eventually, Raymond ended up in the ER, alone. A simple checkup he kept postponing had become something much more serious. It didn't have to be that way. A better way to speak your needs. Asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And letting someone help you isn't bothering them. It's giving them a gift, the chance to show up, to care, to feel connected to you. Instead of saying, I don't want to bother you, try something warmer like, thank you for asking. That would mean a lot. Or, if you're offering, I'd love the company. Simple words, but powerful. They turn a wall into a welcome mat. How life changes when you let others in. When you stop pushing people away, even in the gentlest ways, you'll notice more frequent visits, not out of guilt, but out of joy. A stronger bond with your children and grandchildren. A sense of relief because you're not carrying everything alone. And most of all, a reminder that you're still deeply loved. Because love, in its most genuine form, wants to do something. It wants to show up. Don't deny the people who love you the chance to do that. What about you? Have you ever said, I don't want to bother anyone, when deep down you were really hoping someone would stay? It's okay. So many of us have. But today you can choose to let someone in. Just a little more than yesterday. Before we move on, if this message touched something in you, let us know by leaving a comment below that says, it's okay to need people. Click the like button so more families can hear this conversation. Share it with someone who might be quietly holding back. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders. Here we believe asking for help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you brave. Now let's continue. The next phrase may seem innocent, but it carries a quiet kind of sadness that many overlook. Number 4, the phrase, no one understands me anymore. At first glance, it sounds like a simple observation, a passing thought. But when someone over 70 says, no one understands me anymore, what they're really expressing is disconnection. And while it may seem harmless, this sentence often hides a quiet disappointment, a sense of being left behind, of watching the world spin faster without you in it. You see your grandchildren on their phones. You hear music you don't recognize. You listen to stories about online jobs, digital life, slang you've never heard. And slowly, this thought creeps in. They're in a world I can't be part of. So you say it, not with anger, but with a sigh. No one gets me anymore. But here's the truth. This phrase, even when gently spoken, carries weight. It makes others feel like their efforts to connect aren't enough. It can sound like blame, even if that's not your intention. And over time, people stop trying, not because they don't care, but because they feel like they're always one step behind, always failing to meet you where you are. The emotional and cognitive costs. According to a 2021 study from Johns Hopkins University, seniors who frequently express feeling misunderstood are more likely to withdraw from conversations and group activities. This social withdrawal often leads to weakened language and communication skills, increased risk of mild depression, gradual decline in cognitive flexibility, the brain's ability to stay sharp and adapt. Simply put, the less you engage, the faster your world shrinks. Mr. Carl's quiet mistake, Mr. Carl, 77, from San Diego, California, used to be the center of every family gathering. But in recent years, he started feeling out of sync. When his teenage grandson told him excitedly about a viral TikTok trend, Carl chuckled and said, "You guys live in a whole different world. I don't get any of it." He meant no harm. It was just a casual comment. But the next time they met, the stories stopped coming. His grandson still loved him. He just didn't want to make Grandpa feel more out of place. That one sentence, innocent as it seemed, put up a quiet wall. How to stay connected without pretending to understand everything. You don't need to become a tech expert. You don't need to fake excitement about things that feel foreign, but you do need to stay open, curious, willing to learn, even just a little. Instead of saying, "I don't understand any of this," try, "That's new to me. Tell me more about it." That one shift turns a wall into a bridge. It tells your loved ones, "I may not get it all, but I care enough to try." What you gain when you shift your language, continue connection with younger generations. A sharper, more agile mind thanks to curiosity and conversation. A stronger role as someone who listens, adapts, and evolves. And perhaps most beautifully, the joy of seeing the world through their eyes, because curiosity is the heartbeat of youth, and you can choose to carry it no matter your age. So let me ask you, when was the last time you asked someone younger to show you something new? A song, an app, a game, their favorite YouTuber? You don't need to love it. You just need to show that they matter enough for you to ask. Before we move on, if you believe it's never too late to stay curious, hit the like button and share this video with someone you want to reconnect with. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm still curious." Now let's keep going. The next phrase may sound humble, but it quietly shuts the door on your worth. 5. My time has passed. There's a certain sadness hidden in this phrase. Not loud, not angry, just quiet and final. My time has passed. It usually shows up when someone feels like they're no longer relevant, when the energy isn't quite the same, when opportunities come knocking, and the instinct is to look away. Maybe it's an art class, a travel group, a chance to learn something new, but the response is always the same. "That sounds nice, but I'm too old for that now. I would have loved this 30 years ago. My time has passed." And just like that, possibility closes. But here's the truth no one tells you enough. Time doesn't pass you. You pass by time when you stop saying yes. Why this phrase is more dangerous than it seems. On the surface, it sounds harmless, like realism, like maturity, but it's often just a gentle form of giving up. According to the National Council on Aging, NCOA, older adults who believe their best days are behind them are 47%. More likely to isolate themselves, leading to anxiety, sadness, and declining mental health. The real danger isn't aging. It's believing that nothing new is worth exploring anymore. Because when you think your time is over, you stop reaching, stop showing up, stop allowing yourself to grow. A story from Georgia. Miss Dorothy, 80 years old, lives in a quiet town in Georgia. She used to love art as a young woman, but life got busy, raising children, working full-time, taking care of her family. Years later, when a community center near her home offered a watercolor class for seniors, a neighbor invited her to join. Dorothy smiled and said, "I would have loved this 30 years ago, but now my time has passed." She stayed home that afternoon. But what she didn't know was that 3 of her friends, all her age, went to that class. And months later, their paintings were displayed at a local gallery. Not because they were masterpieces, but because they said yes. Dorothy didn't miss out because she was old. She missed out because she decided her time was over, before anyone else did. A better way to respond. You don't need to pretend you're 25. You don't need to move faster, think quicker, or outdo anyone. But you do need to stay open, to remind yourself that there's still room for firsts. Instead of saying, "My time has passed," try this instead. "I might be late to the party, but I still want to join." That phrase tells the world, and more importantly, yourself, "I'm still curious. I'm still here. I'm still capable of becoming." And that is a powerful message. What changes when you believe it's not too late? You start seeing invitations as possibilities, not reminders of what you missed. You begin to light up when learning something new. A language, a recipe, a skill, or even how to video chat with your grandkids. You reawaken a part of yourself you thought was gone. The part that still laughs, still dreams, still wants to surprise the world. And without knowing it, you inspire everyone around you. Because when others see you growing, they remember they can too. A question just for you. Is there something you've always wanted to try, but thought it was too late? A class, a book, a letter never written, a place never visited. You're not too late. You're just on your own timeline. Before we continue, if this message speaks to you, comment below. It's never too late. Click the like button if you've ever talked yourself out of something you truly wanted. And share this video with someone who might need that little push to say yes. Let's move forward. The next phrase? It might sound modest, but it quietly erases something incredibly important: your ability to give. Number 6, the phrase, I have nothing left to give. It doesn't always come out loud. Sometimes it's whispered under breath. Other times it's tucked inside a polite smile or a quiet shrug. I have nothing left to give. It sounds like humility. But behind those words is a belief far more painful: that your value is gone, that you've poured out all you had and now there's nothing left worth sharing. But let me tell you something you might have forgotten. Your greatest contributions may still be ahead of you, because giving doesn't end with youth. It only changes form. What this phrase really means: when someone says, I have nothing left to give, what they often mean is, no one asks for my advice anymore. I'm not physically strong like I used to be. I feel invisible in rooms where I once led. These thoughts are real. They come from a place of exhaustion, but they're also rooted in a dangerous assumption that giving only means doing. And that's simply not true. The quiet consequence of believing you're empty: when you stop believing you have something to offer, you stop showing up, you stop speaking up, you stay quiet when someone needs your wisdom, and the world becomes a little poorer without your voice in it. Research from the National Institute on Aging, NIA, shows that older adults who continue contributing emotionally, socially, intellectually, maintain better brain health, experience less loneliness, and live longer. Giving isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's a story told at the right moment. A calm presence in a room full of chaos. A kind word that someone carries with them for years. Those things matter. You still matter. Mr. Stevens' rediscovery. Mr. Stevens, 79, lives in Oregon. He spent his whole life working with wood, building furniture, fixing broken things for neighbors. But after retirement, arthritis slowed him down. His tools collected dust. When his grandson asked for help with a school project, building a small birdhouse, Stephen almost said no. I don't think I'm much help these days, he muttered, but the boy insisted. They worked together slowly, over a weekend. That birdhouse? It wasn't perfect, but it sat proudly on a backyard tree, and his grandson talked about it for weeks. And Stephen? He felt something light up inside. He hadn't built just a birdhouse. He'd built connection, confidence, memory. He still had something to give. He always did. A better way to speak about your value. Next time you feel like you're done giving, try saying this instead: I may move slower, but I still have stories, love, and experience to share. Or I still show up, and that matters. You don't need to be useful in the way you used to be. You only need to be present, and trust that your presence still carries weight. What happens when you start giving again? You begin to feel more engaged with the world around you. Strengthen your sense of purpose and belonging. Leave a legacy, not through money or achievements, but through meaningful moments. And most of all, you remind others and yourself that your chapter isn't over. When you give, even in small ways, you invite others to do the same. And that ripple effect can change everything. So let me ask you, what's one thing, one simple thing you could still give today? Your attention, your humor, a favorite recipe, a story no one else knows but you? Someone is waiting for that gift, even if they haven't asked for it yet. Before we continue, if this part spoke to your heart, leave a comment below with the words, I still have something to give. Like this video if you believe presence is powerful, and share it with someone who might need a reminder of their own value. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where giving never has an expiration date and wisdom isn't old, it's timeless. Let's keep going. The next phrase sounds like a fact, but it hides a longing that many are too afraid to admit out loud. Number 7, the phrase, no one needs me anymore. This might be one of the most painful beliefs a person can carry. The idea that you're no longer useful, that your presence doesn't matter. But here's the truth. That feeling is often not reality. It's perception. Saying no one needs me anymore doesn't reflect your value. It reflects your disconnection from it. The cost of this belief. According to Gerontology Today, older adults who feel unneeded experience a 20% greater decline in immune function and longevity. Not because their body is failing, but because their spirit is convinced it's no longer relevant. This belief becomes a silent retreat from life. Mr. Leonard's story, Leonard, 84, from Ohio, said this sentence almost daily. Until one winter morning, a neighbor knocked on his door needing help fixing a leaky faucet. Leonard fixed it in minutes, but what really changed that day wasn't the faucet. It was him. That small task reminded him he still had skills, still had purpose, still had a place. In the months that followed, he became the go-to fix-it guy in his neighborhood, and he smiled more. A better way to speak instead of saying, "No one needs me, try. I'm still here, and maybe I can still help. Just ask." It's an invitation, a soft opening, and it tells the world, you're still willing to show up. Why this matters, it restores connection, brings back a sense of contribution, adds small moments of purpose to each day. You don't need to be in demand, you just need to be available. And that in itself is powerful. A question for you. Has someone ever surprised you by needing your help? When you thought they wouldn't, it happens more than you think. Before we move on, if this message hit home, comment below. I still matter. Let's continue. The final phrase may seem thoughtful on the surface, but it quietly pushes love away. 8. I'm just a burden. Of all the phrases we've explored today, this one cuts the deepest. I'm just a burden. It doesn't sound loud. It rarely comes with anger. Instead, it slips out quietly, between sighs, or in the silence after someone brings you groceries, takes you to the doctor, or calls to check in. You think you're being considerate. You think you're sparing them stress. But what you're really doing is slowly pushing them away, not because they don't love you, but because every time you say this, you place a weight in their hands they don't know how to carry. What this phrase really does, when you call yourself a burden, you force your loved ones into an emotional corner. They're not just trying to help you anymore. They're now trying to prove to you that you're worth helping. And when love feels like a courtroom instead of a safe place, even the most devoted child starts stepping back, not from resentment, but from the pain of feeling like their love makes you feel worse, not better. The truth, backed by research AARP, conducted a national study that reveals something striking. Over 80% of older adults believe they're a burden to their adult children. But in reality, only 12% of adult children say they feel burdened. That gap isn't just sad. It's a lie we've told ourselves. And worse, it's a lie that destroys connection. The truth is, your family doesn't want perfection. They want presence. They want you without apology. A story from Michigan. Mrs. Ellen, 76, lives in Michigan. She lost her husband 5 years ago. Since then, her daughter Jessica visits every Sunday without fail. Each time, Ellen smiles, makes tea, and softly says, "You shouldn't waste your time on me, honey." At first, Jessica reassured her, but over time, the visits grew quieter. Jessica began to wonder, am I doing something wrong? Is my love making her feel guilty? Eventually, the visit slowed. Not because the love disappeared, but because the joy of giving it was met with resistance. Ellen didn't mean to push her daughter away, but her words did it for her. A better way to welcome love instead of saying, "I'm just a burden." Try this. "Thank you for being here. It means the world to me." That sentence doesn't deny the effort your loved ones give. It honors it. And in return, it lets them know their time, their care, their presence is wanted. Because love, when received with grace, grows stronger. But love, when met with guilt, quietly retreats. Why this change matters. When you shift your words, you open the door to deeper emotional connection, a sense of being valued, not pitied, a space where love can flow freely without shame or self-blame. You deserve that, and so do the people who love you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said, "I'm just a burden," without realizing how deeply it might hurt the person who is simply trying to love you? You're not alone. We all struggle to receive sometimes, but today, you can start receiving with gratitude instead of guilt. Before we close this chapter, if this message spoke to your heart, please leave a comment that says, "I choose to receive love with gratitude." You are not a burden. You are a blessing. And the people who love you are lucky to have you. Let's move into our final thoughts. Before we go, let's take a quiet moment to remember what we've shared today. 8 simple phrases, some soft, some heavy, but all with one thing in common. They slowly build walls instead of bridges. Maybe you've said one of them. Maybe you've heard them from someone you love. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't realize how deeply those words were shaping the space between you and others. But the beautiful thing is this: words can be rewritten. Stories can begin again. At any age, you still have so much to give. Your presence, your wisdom, your stories, your laughter, your love, and the world still needs you in it, exactly as you are. So if any part of this video made you pause, reflect, or feel less alone, consider this your gentle reminder. You matter. You're not behind. You're not done. And you're certainly not a burden. You are a vital part of someone's life story, even if they haven't said it out loud lately. And sometimes, the smallest change in how you speak to yourself can open the biggest door back to connection. If this message touched your heart today, I'd love for you to leave a comment below, maybe just a line, sharing which phrase resonated most with you or what you're choosing to say differently from now on. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please send it their way. A single share could be the moment someone else needed to feel seen again. You can also support this community by liking this video, turning on the bell so you don't miss what's next, and subscribing to Golden Wise Elders. Because here, we honor your journey. We listen to your voice, and we walk this chapter with you, not ahead of you, not behind you, but right beside you. Thanks for spending this time with us. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay kind to yourself and stay open to the love that still surrounds you.